Streaming live around the world, this is Paper Cuts with Brad and Jay.
We'll just get this out of the way here. Thanks for joining us on Brad's show.
Yeah, thanks for coming to my show. I did not say shenanigans. Okay.
Are you drinking already?
No, I've just got water. I always looking smooth, aren't you?
Yeah, I do it. I try to clean it up for the show. Look, one of us has to. Come on.
Tonight, we welcome to the show writer Jeremy Hepler. We are live.
And for the record, you did say shenanigans, by the way.
Did I say shenanigans? I don't think so.
You did. You did. Welcome one, welcome all. Step right up. That sounds like a carnival. That sounded better in my head. Yeah. Hey, you found the hottest place on the YouTubes. Welcome to Paper Cuts, everyone. Over there, that way. That's Brad.
Nope, that way.
That's Brad. I'm Jay.
I mess it up every single time.
That's enough about us. They already know about us, right?
One thing about us, we talked about it kind of last time, but tomorrow is our 1 year anniversary. Jay, what'd you get me?
Is tomorrow the official? Because I said the last show was.
That was like on the last one you did like a zero show.
Episode
I watched
0.
it, and then you said the first one was June 4th, maybe something like that.
Tomorrow was our first episode with Megan.
I'm horrible with time.
Did you give me a present, Jay?
I did. It's
you did?
It's for after hours.
Okay. It's for the Patreon exclusive after show.
We should really start that. All right, enough. Joining us this evening, author of The Boulevard Monster, Cricket Hunters, and his latest. This is when we both hold up the book.
Oh yeah, here we go. Hold on.
SUNRAY. Like, it might help if I didn't cover up the actual name of it.
Cover it all up like this.
Yeah. SUNRAY ALICE. Everyone, welcome to the show. Jeremy Hepler. What's going on, Jeremy?
What's going on, Jeremy?
Not much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Pleasure's all yours. Trust me.
I know we had you scheduled. What was it? End of April or so, and some stuff happened. We had to get you back on the show.
Everything went sideways with Silver Shamrock, and delayed a month, 6 weeks or so.
I mean, it felt like just a big gong was playing, like womp womp womp, like everyone lost on Price is Right or something,
right?
And all that stuff happened. But I mean, speaking of which, we still got the book that we could talk about. So
how long had it been out before that all mess happened? Was it like a week or two?
Yeah, mine was the second to last one release. 12 days, about the Tuesday before it all went down on a Saturday. Mine was 2 Tuesdays before, about 12 days, because mine came out a Tuesday about 10, 12 days before. Then Ronald Kelly's Haunted, one of his short story ones, came out 5 days before. So ours were the last two.
I've got his too.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
those were the last two that came out in the 2 weeks before. So it only been out about 10 days.
And it was really bad.
Everything got shut down.
Yeah. And Tim McGregor's didn't even come out yet. It was still in the early.
Right. That one was about a month. I think it's supposed to come about a month after mine.
Right.
I read that. It's a great book. I love that book. It's a good one.
I know. Someone needs to pick it up because everybody says it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good one. It's well written.
Does that whole situation, does it still sting a little bit for you, or are you over it now because you found a new home, right? SUNRAY ALICE has a new home.
It's Crossroads.
Yeah,
right?
it really didn't sting me anymore. It was at first it was just like somebody kicks you in the gut because you sign the contract. I signed the contract for that book almost a year out, so you're a year out waiting already, and then you go through the editing process, you go through the cover process, you go through all of that, and I got to the very end. You start passing out the ARCs, getting everything ready for a launch. You actually get to have the launch, and then a week after you're first starting to get reviews, get people to read it, somebody kicks you in the face and just stops everything and jerks it out from under you. So at first it was just like just dejected a little bit, like, damn, what, man, just you didn't even really know what to do. But then immediately the next day I'm like, all right, find a publisher. I got to get this back quick because it's already out. And I figured I'd have a little trouble doing that because it's already a reprint. Even though it's only been out a week and a half, it's considered a reprint. It's no longer a new story. And so you have to find a company that was willing to do reprints.
That's right. I never thought of that when everyone was looking around for a new publisher. It would now be considered a reprint. So you have to make sure that they're accepting reprints, basically.
Yeah, and luckily, in the indie community, y'all know how it is. A lot of publishers stepped up. A lot of publishers just wanted to help all of us authors out who were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place by no fault of our own.
Right.
And Crossroad, David at Crossroad, immediately I reached out to them because I knew Ronald actually had worked with them and a bunch of other authors, Kelly. And so I
Right.
reached out to him, just told him my situation, and within hours, he was like, "Yes, we'll do it. We'll
So-
do it, and we'll get Sunray Alice out as quick as possible." They picked up all 3 of my books actually.
That was
But
my
they
next
said,
question.
"We'll get
Very
Sunray
cool.
Alice out as quick as we can since it was already released and it is a new release." And so they helped speed that one out as one of the first ones they put out from all of the authors they did pick up. So I was real grateful for that.
So
Yeah.
you approached Crossroads yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody really approached me. I reached out to them. And a lot of the publishers who were offering to help other writers, they were more traditional horror. And a lot of them I reached out to with the SUNRAY ALICE beforehand had been rejected already because it wasn't as dark as what a lot of the horror people like to publish. It was it's less bleak than my first 2. It was a little more almost mainstream young adult in ways. And so I was wondering if even somebody else would pick it up. And even actually when Silver Shamrock picked it up, I didn't submit it to them either because I knew it wasn't near as dark as the stuff they normally publish, like my first one, Cricket Hunters do them and different things. And, but they actually heard about it through other writers that I was trying to shop it. And I'm trying to find a publisher and I was having a lot of trouble. And so then Ken reached out to me actually and was like, "Let me read it." And I was like, "I don't think it's not as dark as what you guys used to do." And he's like, "Let me read it. Let us read it and we'll see." And so they read it and he loved it and took it, so.
Yeah.
And then
So
10 days later, kicking the face.
I mean, looking back now, we could kind of laugh. You kind of laugh about
I don't have any hard feelings. I don't have any grudges. I don't have any bad anything. It happens. I know in the indie world, this happens. When you do small press, you never know what's going to happen the day after tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, just a little side note. Like I talked to Ronald Kelly from time to time, and he actually mentioned to me the other day. He was like, "You know what? It's happened to him like 7 different times over his career." So, so like he could probably write a book about that itself, which would be kind of cool. But yeah. So you mentioned that they took all 3 books. Crossroad took all 3 books. So Cricket Hunter and Boulevard Monster is also going to be through.
Yeah, and Boulevard's already back out. They pushed that one out too since it was the Stoker one, but it's not out in print yet. It's only in digital. But they with Boulevard, I was still under contract actually for that one. But after my contract had run out with Bloodshot Books, last April I had continued on a month-to-month contract where I could pull out whenever I wanted until I found somebody else. And so once I knew that Cricket Hunters and Sunray were going to have a new home, and David said, "Yeah, we'll pick it up at Crossroad," I said, "Well, would you be interested if I pulled my contract on that one? I just have all 3 of them in the same place." And he was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it," And so I went ahead and pulled my contract on Boulevard as well and had them pick it up. And and then we got Ben Baldwin did the cover on that one. He agreed immediately to let us reuse the cover the same way Keelan did with Sunray. So it made it way easier. We didn't have to make a cover. And so we got those covers secured, and Boulevard got back out in digital about a few weeks ago. I know it's way older, so not a big, and it'll come out in print. And then Cricket Hunters is having to get a new cover. So it's going to come out too whenever we get around to it. They're getting a new cover, getting it, and it'll come out digitally and in print again too. And then Sunray is actually coming out in audio here pretty soon. I got an email today from the lady who recorded that she's done. I'm going to be loaded up to, what is it, ACX or something pretty soon. Whatever that site is, they do.
Yeah. I really like you talk about Cricket Hunters. I really like the original cover a lot.
Yeah, Alan M. Clark did that one. I know he did a lot of work with Brian Keene and illustrations for a bunch of cool, the big hitters back in the 90s and stuff. He's a great artist, and he does all of his art like hand art. It's not digital. It's not computers. That guy, he's the same as Ben Baldwin, who did the Boulevard Monster cover. He paints them. It's awesome.
Do you know what the new cover is going to look like at all, or you have any say in what the new one's going to be like? Or
for Cricket Hunters, I think it's going to be similar to that one. Somewhat similar. They've asked me what my input is, the same way like with the SUNRAY ALICE one. I drew sketches of that one that Keelan did, and I posted that. If you go back and look at my Twitter page, the ones I
remember you posted that one.
And the same with this one. They asked, "What do you have in mind?" And I just told them kind of similar to that. I want the sticks. I want a wooded background. Maybe though instead of the bed, maybe do some missing posters. With Abby's name on it, something a little different, but similar.
I don't know
no spoilers though. I'm only about 8. I'll admit I didn't get SUNRAY ALICE finished yet. I'm about 80 to 100 pages in, so no spoilers tonight. Okay. And no one in the chat. I see Mitch Seaborn in the chat now. Don't spoil it because I know he was reading it too. He was talking about it on Twitter. Don't spoil
Yeah.
it for me. I'll come looking for you because I'm
I don't know
really
why.
like involved now. So
I always thought the sticks were like TV antennas, like 2 old school TV antennas. Just glancing at it, I was like, "That's so strange." And I finally realized that's not a TV antenna
wait,
there.
hold that back up for a second. I have it on Kindle. I don't know if I've ever really looked at the cover or not.
See the glares on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
it's
got it.
really crazy. Like I have a bigger picture of it. And if you look at it real up close, you can see little crickets crawling on the sticks. And if you look at the very top of the sticks, you can see the symbols that are in the book. You know how
I could see it.
has a symbol that they have to carve onto their own stick. And it actually has Cell and what's his name's Parker's symbols on the top of those sticks on the bigger version I have. So it's very detailed if you can get in close. I don't know about that.
I can see the symbols now that you mentioned them. I can tell they're on there.
Yeah, so
that's cool. I didn't
Alan
notice
did a
that
great
before.
job with it.
It's got like the moon in the background too. I just now noticed that. That's a great cover. I love the cover.
Yeah, and I worked with him on that one too. And we did that cover. Actually, he called me whenever they commissioned him to do it, and that's the only cover he did for Silver Shamrock. Everyone after that was done by Keelan, and that was only the second book they ever put out. And they did the first one with Mark Steensland and James Newman, and Keelan did that one. And then they said, well, we're going to try different artists, want to do a mix. So they set me up with Alan, and he called me. He lives up in Oregon, I guess. And we talked for a few hours, and that's what he came up with. But it's real good. He did a great job.
Has been your experience so far with putting out your books? So you've got to sort of collaborate a bit with the cover artists and have some say in them.
Yeah, all three of those that I've done, they've asked for my input. Now, Alan was the only one who said, well, no matter what you tell me, I'm going to do what I want to do. and if you tell me you don't like it, that's just too bad. And I said, all right, that's cool. You know. And then with Ben Baldwin, it was the same. He asked for my input because a lot of times with the indie presses, I think these artists don't have time to read every book. They do.
Yeah.
So they've never actually read most of the books. And so you have to give them synopsis and ideas and what the feel you're trying to get. So, but all three of them, I got to work with them on.
Yeah, especially someone like Keelan, because it feels like he puts out a new book cover like every day, and there's no way he has the time to read all those books.
Right. Yeah. And he did great with Sunray too. Captured exactly what I was looking for on that one. He did great.
So with the sort of experience of what you went through with Silver Shamrock and finding a new publisher, do you have any advice for maybe someone else who might go through that situation in the future of anything you learned from that at all? Or
really, I mean, the only thing you can do is get back on the horse. If it's out of your control, like it was mine, there's really no advice for that to me other than as soon as you see it happening, start looking for another publisher, start trying to find another way out to get your book out there. That's really all you can do is keep the ball rolling. The other option is to sit at home and do nothing. I mean, you really only have two options.
Yeah. On the other side of that, did other writers and people in general reach out to you to show support?
Oh yeah, I think behind the scenes, everybody. It was all the Silver Shamrock authors from Lutsky and everybody everybody was kind of helping each other out behind the scenes, talking to each other. And then even people outside of that, like Brendan LaFaro was reaching out to me and Darren Kephoff and people like that.
Right. Everybody
was pretty much showing support. There were reviewers that were not showing. There were people that actually told me, sorry, I'm not going to review your book now, even though I have the ARC. Sorry, I don't want the signed copy now because I don't want to support you. So I got some negative feedback initially where people were just saying, I don't want that autographed copy ordered. I'm sorry you sent me the book for an ARC, but I'm not going to review it now. I refuse to. And and so I would just be like, okay, I'm sorry this happened. Just do whatever you want.
So they were allowing the actions of the publisher to affect and skew their point of view for your individual story.
There was some that I got like that, and this is between when it started Friday night and Saturday. Over that night and that morning before Silver Shamrock pulled it is when I started getting messages in my DMs telling me, I'm sorry, I know you sent me the book, but I'm not reviewing it. I refuse to support a racist, whatever they would say. And I would just, all I could do is say, okay, I'm sorry. And that's how I knew it all had started. I started getting DMs, people telling me. So then I went back online and started looking back to see what's going on. What is this big shitstorm that must have happened?
Yeah.
And just jumped right into it.
I hate hearing that because that would be a situation where I would hope the reviewers would go ahead and review it so they could show how good it is in hopes that it would help you land another home for it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I'm reading it right now, and you got it home for it, so good. But I mean, I would have still read the other two, the Tim Ragnar and the Ronald Kelly. I'm still going to read those, and I'm going to review
Yeah.
those and talk about them, so we can try to help him find a home for them. So
And
I
I
have
did
to
have
question
some
the
positive
intentions.
people like that. I did have reviewers, and then I had people in the middle ground who said, "We'll read it and review it, but not until it comes out somewhere else. I'll keep this copy and I'll still read it, but I'm not going to put out a review until it finds another home, or
Right.
we'll wait." And so that's fine too. I was just whatever they wanted to do. That was fine with me. Again, it's that at some point that's out of my hands. I don't have a choice in any of that, or say in any of that. If they decide to read it, they do. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, I can see people not wanting to support the publisher, but then again, it sucks for the individual authors that don't have anything to do with it. They're just stuck in the middle with all that stuff.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you could get around not supporting the publisher. Hey, I just read this awesome new book by Jeremy Hepler. It's blah 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 blah. I'm giving it 5 stars, whatever, because it did this and this and this. Hopefully, if he releases it on his own, great. If he finds a new home, super. Support it. I don't know. I guess that kind of strikes a nerve to someone like me, and even I'm sure Brad too, because I mean we review a lot of self-pub writers, that don't have publishers, and the whole point of it is to get the word out and show support and try to get other people to discover what we discover too. So allowing the actions of I'll get off my high horse here in a second, but allowing the actions of the publisher to skew your outlook on a book like that, I think you're in the wrong, you're doing the wrong hobby. You're in the wrong situation. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think there are people that jump on. They like drama. We see it all the time on social media. There are people that like that, and they immediately jump on every, and it was, well, if you're associated with them, then you're complicit, kind of. It's like, well, I didn't know that. I didn't have no idea that book was coming out. I really don't even know what it is. I had no idea anything was posted. I mean, but some people, I guess. And I had a lot of people who do support me and say, well, we'll read it and review it, but we'll hold the review back until it gets available to buy. There were people that helped me out like that, saying, okay, well, we'll keep those ARCs, but we're not going to put the review out until you have another publisher. That way, when I do the review, it'll help you get sales, right? They would do stuff like, I had like so many different people giving so many different reasons or variations on what they would and wouldn't do with it. And I was just, whatever anybody wanted to do, fine with me, that's fine.
I mean, you had other bigger things to worry about. You were looking for a new home for it, so I mean, whatever. Just go away. Leave me alone. I'm researching where I'm going to get it pubbed at. So,
and it did seem like for a lot of what I saw in there, like a lot of authors and other people were really supportive of all the people that were left without a home, trying to support their books and help them find new homes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it was. Everybody kind of came together.
Yeah, the whole community is very supportive in general. And then you just have your trolls behind the, there's always bad, there's real good, there's real bad, and most people in the middle that are supportive. And
not to keep bringing up the sore subject, but what about short stories? Do you have some short stories through them too? Because I know they have a couple of big
I had some in there. I had one in the first one, Midnight in the Graveyard, and then Midnight Beyond the Stars and Aliens. But with my short stories, I don't really care. I'll get the rights back to it no matter what in a matter of years. And I don't have any. And I could get the rights back. They're doing revision of rights for everything. But with those, I'm just going to let it slide because in 2 or 3 years, it reverts back to me no matter what. With Midnight in the first one I did already got the rights back. The second one I'll get it back in a year or two. And at that point, if I want to put in the collection mode, I will. I don't plan on doing anything.
I mean, you can just get all of your short stories back, and then when it's time, just release your own short story collection.
Yeah,
that would work too. So.
And those two had already been out for more than a year. One of them out for 3 years. One of them had been out for over a year or a close year. So everybody's going to read it is going to read it. And later on, if I do a collection of all my short stories, I can just throw it in there then. And by then, the rights will revert it back to me anyway.
Yeah. So with SUNRAY ALICE being your new book, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what it's about?
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
That book,
just the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, right. With that one, it is just about a woman who has been keeping a secret of an experience she had back during World War II when she was a teenager, and she's held this secret of what happened that week that affected her town, that's affected her life. And she's tried to find somebody that she can trust to pass it on to. And now she's finally met this young apprentice of sorts in a orphaned girl that's been raised down the street from her now that she's in her elderly years, and they've become real good friends. They're kindred soul type, even despite the age, they're so similar. And then she decides finally, as she's nearing the end of her life, I'm gonna tell this girl the truth. Finally, I'm gonna get this off my chest after 75 years. I need somebody to know my truth before I go. I need somebody to know this. And so that's what the story is them taking a walk through a garden she's been building over 70 years in the Texas Panhandle that's just massive and out of place. And as they stroll through the garden, it goes back and forth from the past to the present, where she is telling this young girl about this week back in 1944 and what happened in her town when it comes to an internment camp, which is a POW internment camp that was nearby her hometown.
You said, I think it was Sadie Hartman posted something quoting Joe Lansdale. It might have been today or yesterday about write like all your friends are dead or everyone you know is dead or something like that. And I saw you posted on there. That's what you did with SUNRAY ALICE. You wrote, well, so was it sort of a different experience from your other two books, writing it more for yourself than maybe for like an audience or anything?
Sure. I think the first two I did write for myself too, but this was different because it's not as dark as the first two. It's not as dark as most of my short stories. It was a little bit way less horror and bleak than the other two. And in that sense, I think at first I was a little bit like, man, I'm not going to be able to find a publisher for this. The whole community I'm involved in, I know people read diversely, but it's going to be hard to find a place to land this. It's not horror per se. It's not mystery. It's not science fiction. It's just kind of young adult. It's not graphic. It's not anything. Right. And, but then my wife, would tell me, no, this is the story you've had. You do it. Just freaking do it. And I tell myself that too. And if it gets somewhere, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so I wrote it, and it turned out being the short story I had started, which actually started it many years earlier, was going to be way darker. But then as I wrote this, it turned out not being as dark, and it just went where it went, and I had to go with it, I guess. But yeah, writing it, I enjoyed the experience more than I did the other one, I think, because of maybe where I was mindset-wise and emotionally. And because it was written during COVID. The COVID lockdown happened in March. I started this in April, finished it in July. And during that time, when I was struggling with my own depression and anxiety and suicidal demon things, and then all that kicked in, then George Floyd was murdered. Now, all this is going on in the background. We're all locked at home. Nobody knows anything about what's going to happen with COVID. I couldn't write, couldn't do anything. And my wife comes and gives me my notebooks and says, you need to start writing again. You need to do something that's going to help you feel better. You always feel better when you're doing that. And so when I matched up ideas, and which is in the acknowledgments in the back there, it tells this whole story. Then I started writing, and it was like I was like Back to the Future. I was transporting back in time to 1944. I loved it. I would tell my son and wife, good morning. We're all at home. My wife's a teacher. She was teaching from home. Son's taking to school from home. I'd come in the computer room and shut the door and put on my headphones, and I would teleport to 1944 with Alice. And through her and Carl, in their way, they were looking for hope. And in a way, I think I was searching for hope at the time. And I think that's why I loved it so much. I pretty much traveled with them on a journey for hope, to find it, because what they were going through, what I was going through, it was kind of like I found my hope through them. And so in that way, it was way different than the first two books.
You said you were worried that it wasn't going to really fit into the horror because it wasn't as dark and as much horror as some of the other stuff that the community reads and stuff. But I think the horror umbrella is so big.
Sure.
It found its way in there. I don't know exactly what kind of genre that it should be considered. And again, I'm only about 100 pages in, so I don't know what twists and turns are coming later on. But I think it found a way to, even if it took a detour, it found its way in there because that umbrella is just so huge. There are a lot of crazy things under that horror umbrella. So yeah, it found its home. It found a way to get in there with us.
Sure. And I think there are definitely touches of horror in it. And me and my wife, when she's the only one that had read it, we're talking, and I was trying to, maybe thinking, should I pitch it as a young adult? Because it could go there too. But it's more, it's more just like young adult speculative fiction, coming of age, historical. It has bits of horror too. So
what would you say, Brad? Before he hopped on, you said it reminded you of
it reminds me a lot of Boy's Life by Robert McCammon.
Sure.
It has, it's very reality based, but then I don't want to give anything away, but there's this magical kind of realism element to it a little bit that's not super like fantasy level, just right above the surface. It reminds me of Boy's Life a little bit.
Sure.
And it has a coming of age aspect, this time with a girl instead of a boy. But I really, and I don't know if you've read much McCammon. I've read his other book called The Listener, and it reminded me sort of that as well, where it's real life, but there's that's fairly new.
Yeah, I think I read that one. I read Swan Song too, and then another one I read about something about South or something, some Vietnam guy. I don't know.
Gone South, I think that one's
South.
Yeah, that one. Those are the ones I've read.
There's two different eras of Robert McCammon because he stopped for a while. I think The Listener was when he started writing again.
The Listener's fairly new. It came out with Cemetery Dance in like 2017 or something.
That's what I think, because he had stopped for a long time, and then it took him a while to get his rights back. I remember it's his early ones, and then he kind of changed his whole process from what I read. I don't know. I could be
so is Debbie, is that your wife or
Debbie? That's my mother.
Okay, she's saying it's paranormal versus horror.
Yeah, and she loved it too, of course. Moms do. Yeah, I really didn't know how to categorize it, like I said, and that's why when I would send it, when I was sending it off to try to get it published, I was like, well, who do I send this to? Like some places are like, we want, if you have splatterpunk, go with it, and I'm like, well,
yeah.
But I think it's a mix, just speculative fiction, it's something more like Bradbury or some of the softer King stuff. It's not really horror, but it's definitely speculative, and
Brad, can you explain your term magical realism for our audience, please? I'm being told that's an oxymoron.
Is it? I don't know. That's a real genre of stuff. It's like a.
I think the way you said it was just like I didn't catch it, but
I can't remember the author's name. He's like a Japanese or Chinese. He does a lot of magical realism stuff.
Well, and the person who invented the genre, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, was from South America, and he wrote. He pretty much invented magical realism, and he lived in a country where they were being suppressed. So he had to write stories that were allegorically and magical realism about being suppressed by their government back, I guess it'd be the early 1900s. I'm not sure exactly when he lived. But he would use magical realism, and he pretty much coined that. We had a study when I was in college, so that's how I know him. He has some awesome.
I'm totally going to start.
That's my wife right there. She's an English teacher, so we'll trust her with the.
She's one you to put out your collections. What she's saying?
Yeah. But she likes she likes my short stories. She actually teaches them. She's an English teacher for the past 19 years. She's taught all high school. Now she teaches middle school. She reads my short stories with some of her kids every Halloween. Like they read them as a group. So
do you make her edit your stuff?
Do what?
Does she edit your stuff for you?
Oh yeah, she's my editor. She's my first reader. She's the only person that's actually reads. She's the only one that read SUNRAY ALICE before it was submitted. She's the only one that read all 3 books. She's the only person that reads it before it was submitted to an editor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's like a grammar, no pun, but she's a grammar Nazi. She goes through, and being an English teacher all these years, she does all of my grammar edits.
So does she ever have a response like, no, change it all? Change it all. Start over.
Comes back all red pinned up.
Right? She doesn't like she really doesn't like a lot of, she's more literary minded, and she likes softer stuff, not really dark horror. When she was growing up, she actually skipped first grade because she read so well. She's very well read and smart. And started reading Stephen King at 10 or 11, but now she loves to read more literary stuff. So the biggest critique she gives me,
you get in trouble.
Right, the biggest critique she gives me is write more. Don't write, write. I want more description. I want more. She likes more deep, bigger paragraph, literary. She doesn't like the short, choppy, the way a lot of stuff is done now, with a lot of shorter, less description, real fast. Mm-hmm. She likes old school literary stuff.
The author I was trying to think of, it's Haruki Murakami, does a lot of magical realism.
Oh yeah,
I got some of the stuff.
It says I looked up the definition for whoever asked. It's painting.
I was just passing along the message, and
it's painting in a meticulously.
Message is going to yell at me in a minute here.
Are they? It's painting in a meticulously realistic style of imaginary or fantastic scenes or images. So it is a real thing. I didn't just make that up.
Oh yeah, no. When Gabriel Garcia Marquez You know, like his stories, one of them we had to read in college it's about an angel. They find an angel on a beach, and it's a real life angel with wings, but it's set in a real life setting. So, you know, you have a realistic world with real people just going about the regular business, but then something magical shows up and it's unexplained and it's not from another, you know, it's just there and it's magical. And so
that sounds like something like what happens in this book.
right, yeah. Well, and some of the reviewers have said that, you know, talked about magical realism about it. I think a few of the reviewers I've seen have said, you know, that there's magical realism in it. I never really thought of it as I was doing it, but I guess it is kind of.
I don't want to say what it is or anything, but as I was reading it, it caught me off guard because it was so realistic up to that point. But
Yeah.
like, oh, it was such a cool addition into the story that I really appreciated. But it completely caught me off guard because I didn't expect it to
And
go
I'm
that
just
direction.
now at that point, by the way. It really did feel very just literary up to that. You know, I was waiting for something like a twist, and it happened. That's the area I'm in right now. So we're not going to go too far into it, Brad. But
I'm not gonna say anything, and it didn't feel like it was out of place. Like, oh, this doesn't fit at all. I just wasn't expecting it, but it was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah. When I knew that, like when I started looking, when I was writing it, how it didn't show up until around page 68, 66. I have the book pretty much memorized after a while. You know, you read so many times, but it's around there. But I think it's around 68. And I would look and think, man, I battled with, should this happen sooner? If I'm going to introduce this, but I was like, I can't. Everything else has to be there first,
right.
you know. So, but I struggled with, if I'm going to start introducing elements like this, does it need to be introduced sooner, and so it doesn't seem weird? But in the end I was like, well, this is as soon as I can get it, really. So you know, when you can hint at it a little bit in the present sections, just the weirdness of the garden, the weirdness of things, to show there's definitely something odd, but I couldn't really start showing things.
I was gonna say the build up to it was enough to keep me involved to get to that point. So yeah, I mean, I thought the story was going to be mostly about, and I don't want to give away anything either, but the whole build up, you know, what was actually happening, you know, why was this town on edge? The reason why they're, you know, so that was, all that stuff was good enough to keep me involved, and I knew something else was going to happen. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't out of place at all. I was kind of happy to see something like that happen, because it was like two different directions you go, something really dark or something kind of a brighter way, and that's the way we went. So, and again, I still have like 100 and some pages to read. But
everyone dies by the end, Jay.
I know, really.
It's like, super dark.
The last pages and they're dead.
Right.
I like what Mitch Seaborn says here. I think some of the best fiction is the stuff that's hard to label. Sure, some the author lets a story go where it needed to go. So you weren't trying to pin it into, like you said, splatter punk or horror western or whatever other genre. Just, you let it be its own thing.
Sure, yeah, and I could have forced it to be anything, but then it's just, I let really Alice tell the story, because when I started the story, it was actually from Carl's point of view, and the short story was from his point of view initially 10 years ago when I started it. And then though, as I kept going, it's like Alice's voice got louder and louder and louder as this side character, and eventually I started saying, man, she's screaming for this to be her story for me. I have to switch it over. And so I had to switch, you know, instead of it being his story, mainly it became her story as I went on and realized she's the strong cat. She's the one we need to follow and listen to.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier it's not as dark as your other stories.
Sure.
You wrote it during COVID and stuff. So do you think that was like a conscious decision, you not making it as dark, sort of escapism for you as the author, not wanting to write about dark stuff, you know, during the time you wrote it and stuff, or just naturally just kind of progress that way?
Well, and naturally I think progressed, but like I was kind of said at the beginning, I think I was in a depressed place where I was looking for hope myself, you know, and almost suicidal. And so I was looking for hope. And in a way I found it. I started writing because I was looking for hope. So my creative self started creating that journey with these people who also were both found in a place where they were needing hope and felt, you know, almost constrained or trapped and didn't know what to do. They both struggled from loss type things. And I think that, definitely made a difference in how it turned out more positive than the first two. Just the overall situation, circumstances, what was going on with me personally, and then what was going on in the world around everybody at that time with the initial lockdown, just nobody knew anything. about this. Is it going to be a zombie apocalypse disease? Or flu? And then the whole social unrest that started after George Floyd was murdered, and just everything was chaotic at that time. But I think that made me, I was searching for a little line of, at the end of all this, there's going to be something good. At the end of everything, I think I was really that personally too.
Do you think all of those situations all happening at once kind of made this story like I don't know what the word I'm looking, as beefy as it is? Do you think that's what made this book so great? Like, what has changed from your last book, which I think is Cricket Hunters?
Hunters.
Until this one, aside from all of the things happening in the world that you just discussed, what are those the things that made you change and write this kind of book? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, what's changed the most, I guess? I think how did all those things affect the outcome of this particular book?
Yeah, well, I think it was more just situational for that time period, not the link between them, anything in specific. It was just this idea was a little less dark initially anyway, once it started growing. And I think because of that specific frame it was written in, I think if I would write it a year earlier, it might have turned out, darker or different. I think it was just because of the specific mindset that I was in at that time. It spun out that way. I don't really know. I mean, the one I'm writing now is going to be darker too. So it was just.
It's a kind of perfect place, perfect time kind of thing.
Yeah, it all just clicked, and it really did help. It helped me rejuvenate. I think it was just it was a therapy for me. Like I said, to also be able to escape every day. I would leave the office and I would forget I was in my house. It was that type of, and sometimes when you're writing, sometimes it's a slog. It takes a week to write 2,000 words. This whole thing for me was it just. Once I started listening to Alice's voice, it just rolled. It just click, 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 click. It was like watching a movie. It's like I came here every day and sit down next to her and was dictating her story, just like she was telling it to me. It went that easy, and that was different than the first two as well.
You said you wrote it from what April to July or something like that?
About I started it probably mid-April. I finished it first or second week in July.
So is that the fastest you'd written a book?
Yeah, I think so. I think Boulevard Monster took about 5-6 months, and Cricket Hunters took a little longer, maybe 6, 7, 8 months for the first draft.
For those who've read it, because I know earlier you said that people decided not to read it when all the stuff happened, but from those who have read it, I've seen a lot of positive responses on Twitter. How are you looking at all the response overall? Are you seeing more than what we're seeing on Twitter? Are you seeing different reviews? I mean, what's the total response that you're feeling from people's reaction with this book?
I've been getting really positive reviews so far. I mean, I see the same pretty much on Twitter. Occasionally I'll see things, and I'll check Goodreads, not that often, but I'll get on there and check it. And so far, so far so good. I'm getting mostly positive reviews. I know the longer it's out, the more reviews you get, you'll start getting some bad ones or whatever, and that's fine. I mean, that's fine. Art's subjective; people like it or not. But so far, everybody seems to like it. It's getting outreach. It's getting it out to enough people to start getting enough reviews to get a good consensus. I think that still has to happen. Still only been out out like a month and a half now or something.
Right.
So hopefully word will spread. It'll start to get more and more.
And you were talking about while you're writing it and trying to shop at the publishers, you weren't sure, how to market it and where it would fit. So has the response been better or different than what you expected, since you really didn't know if it was horror, not horror, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's been bad. I expect the only thing really, I didn't really expect a lot of negative, because I know it's a good story. I really feel that, but I think I expect people to say, "Oh, this is not what we expected from you." I have people that love my first book better than the second one, love the second better than the first one. Some that like them, a lot of people like them both. And I thought those people, they're going into a third one that's going to be totally different, and that's fine, because the second one is actually more of a thriller. First one's supernatural horror. Second one's almost a thriller murder mystery. This one is, just a speculative coming of age. So they're all three a little bit of different journeys anyway. But But yeah, I think the reaction's been really well.
So you haven't pigeonholed yourself into the same thing over and over and over, which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
you could start using the tagline "Not what you expect" from Jeremy Hepler.
Right. That's what my whenever I graduated high school, that's what they used for our theme actually for my I graduated in 1996. It says "Not quite what you expected" was the theme of our high school graduation that year.
Hey, I'm a '96 guy.
Cool. Yeah, I graduated in '96.
I won't say how old I was.
Brad was alive yet. Yeah, Brad wasn't alive yet.
I was 10. So with this one, I love stuff set in World War II. So when it was originally a short story, was that where it was set as well, being 1944?
No, originally it was set a little bit before that, maybe in the 30s or 20s, and but it was going to be similar. Just a guy gets off a train, he's wearing these gloves, he starts doing stuff, but he gets in. Basically, it was going to be a lynch mob short story for a lynch mob anthology. And it ended up, he met these kids and it started spiraling out of control, got up to like 10,000 words. And at that time, I was not confident going into a novel. I'd never written a novel. So I set that aside. And then many years later, I was watching a PBS special about internment camps. And they started talking about an internment camp that was about an hour and a half where I grew up in the Texas Panhandle, because I grew up there. And I didn't know they existed. I didn't know we brought German soldiers over here. I didn't know I knew about the Asian, the Chinese and Japanese internment camps. I had no idea we brought over 300,000 Italian and German soldiers over here. We're bringing 30,000 a month and putting them in camps. And Texas, especially the Panhandle, has a ton of space. There's nothing up there. So they started building camps. And the one that was about an hour and a half from where I grew up was the third largest out of 79 at the time. There were 4,000 soldiers there. POWs, about 400 soldiers ran it. And after I saw that PBS special, I got infatuated just like, man, I want to know more about this. It's weird that these camps were here. We never really hear about them in school or anything. So whenever I took a bunch of notes, but again, I didn't know where to use them. And I was like, I want to use this someday, but I don't know how. And then years later during COVID, my wife brings my notebook, throws it on my lap. I start going through, I find that short story from where I originally started about the anomaly, the anthology for the lynch mob, and then I found the notes for that, and then I was like, man, those could go together. I'm just gonna, and it was like a puzzle. They went together. Then the idea spawned from there, and that's why I decided, okay, I need to set it though in the 40s, in 44, because it needs to be during that camp. So I did all the research on the camp to learn when it was built. So that camp that's on there is based on Camp It's not Camp Hutchinson in the book is actually Camp Hereford. In real life was the actual name of it. And it's up in the Texas Panhandle though, different location. SUNRAY is actually a town in the Texas Panhandle too. I just used it because the name was too good not to use it for the story. But SUNRAY's not near the actual Camp Hereford. It's probably 2 hours away, 2.5 hours.
Okay. I was going to ask if you made up the whole town, but it's a real name of a town.
It is. And actually, a lot of the stuff I use, I did a lot of research. The town was founded in the 30s, like on most boom towns, like Borger, the town I grew up in, the panel, they're all found between maybe 1915, 1930. They were all oil boom towns. They pop up. Borger, the town I grew up in, within a month of discovering oil there, went from the population of like 500 to 30,000. For a couple of months, it was the murder capital of the United States because people were getting shot there every day. It was crazy, but this was in the early 30s. But then once the oil went away, it dropped from 30,000 back down to 500 overnight. And this happened. This is how SUNRAY became a town. This is how most panhandle towns, all the small towns, that's how they all are. They were pop-up towns because there was no other reason to be there. There's nothing out here, in the panhandle. There was nothing there except the oil and pasture. But yeah, I researched SUNRAY. And SUNRAY actually, how like in the book, there's one movie theater that's only one with air conditioning. That's true. The real SUNRAY at the time only had paved roads that went to churches and Main Street. That's true. A lot of the stuff the way that they brought in the houses on the sheds that are empty all over town, those are that is true. About 2/3 of the town was abandoned. So a lot of the stuff I tried to keep as factual as possible about the original town, so that would give it more of an authentic feel. But yeah, a lot of the stuff none of the people, of course, and I mess with the geography. But a bunch of those things are actual. They had one filling station. They had one grocery store, just like I use in the story.
So how much time did you spend researching and being a history buff about all this stuff before you actually sat down and started writing? Because you said it took about 2 months 2-3 months to write it. But I mean, it sounds like you did a year's worth of research, getting all of your facts together.
Right. The camp research I had done, I did all the camp research. I had cards, like little index cards I had done. Whenever I saw that PBS special, which would be years before, actually, I did all the camp research then. So I knew everything about the camp, everything about how they were brought there, everything about where the train tracks ran by the camp, how they were brought in to Houston on boats. They were put on a train and ridden up, and the train tracks ran about 2 miles from Camp Hereford. They were kicked out and made to walk the 2 miles because there were no roads to get there. All of this stuff I had already researched, and I had read memoirs and diaries from people that lived there at the time.
That's cool.
So all of that I did after the PBS special. And then the Sunray, the town itself, once I decided to set it there, I just went to their official sites, went to people that lived there at the time, found one lady actually that kept a journal who had moved there in the late 30s. And a lot of the stuff she documents is stuff where I got a lot of my facts because she grew up there and ended up being a mayor there when she got older. So it didn't, I took maybe a month to research the town, but the camp's a little longer.
So had you done research like that on your previous 2 books, or was this sort of a different experience with this one?
There was more because I had to set the time period properly. But even with like Rigged Hunters, I do research on, in that one I do curanderismo, which is a Hispanic religion that believes in witchcraft and brujas. And my wife grew up with that because she's Hispanic. She grew up down by the border. But a lot of that I had to research. But this one had way more because it was set at that time period. And so I had to research. I would get to points where like Alice's shoes or the perfumes they had available, or I had to look up what brands of flour were available in the Texas Panhandle, and then the stuff about indoor plumbing or not. I had to research all of that and get it factual to fit. And everything in there is 100% the way the Panhandle was at that time.
Nice. Was that a fun experience doing all the research and extra stuff like that?
Yeah, it was, especially since I grew up there. Since I grew up there, and I know the place real well. And I've never read any story. I don't know any stories set in the Texas Panhandle. Very few. Annie Prohl wrote one. She's a literary author. She wrote one called The Old Ace in the Hole many years ago. That's one of the only books I've ever known that's actually set in the Panhandle, unless it's Western, and they run through there fighting Indians at some point or another. When they're in the plains. Because the Comanches basically were still in the Panhandle up until the early 1900s. Bands of them were running out of Oklahoma. The Comanches weren't shut down until the late 1880s. So over in the East Coast, there were indoor toilets in 1880s. There was all kinds of stuff going on in the East Coast, but the Panhandle was still way, way behind when it came to having running water, having settled towns, it was way behind in the early 1900s.
So when are you going to write your nonfiction history book then?
Right.
I mean, you have it all down. Might as well go that route too. See what happens. See if Crossroad will release that one. That might be their first nonfiction book they release.
Right.
It says in your little bio that you have written nonfiction, right? Some nonfiction articles.
Yeah, most of those were on writing. Those are ones that I would write just to get with Erin Al-Bahari. She helped me with Boulevard Monster because when that came out, she helped me with my publicity because I didn't know anybody, wasn't part of any community, wasn't part of Horror Writers Association, anything. And so Pete at Bloodshot got her to help me. And so she got me a bunch of gigs, through websites and places to write nonfiction articles just to help get my name out there and stuff.
Erin, she's everywhere. She helps everybody.
Right. She's awesome. Erin's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you had written this story like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And was Boulevard Monsters the first novel you attempted and was published, or did you attempt other novels first and then Boulevard Monsters just happened to be the first one published?
There was one novel before that, and that was I had one that I subbed it for Pitch Wars, which is kind of like the Pit Mad, but about pitch wars. And I had one where you get a mentor and then you write the book and they help you write it and they help you pitch it to publishers. And that one actually was going to be The Gardens of Sunray. And I started it out, but then my mentor that I was teamed with, and she was a good writer. I'm not going to say names, but she was a good writer, and she's a mystery writer then. And she had multiple books published, and she was telling me, your first book can't be historical. That's not popular right now. We need to set it in modern times. So I took this idea I had for Gardens of Sunray. Well, it was called Gardens of Sunray then. It became SUNRAY ALICE, and basically rewrote it as a mystery novel So I have a 300-page novel but instead of Carl, I have a Islamic boy. Instead of Alice, I have a 30-year-old guy. Instead of, I have this whole other, and it became a murder mystery. It's way different. And that never got published, but that was my official first novel I finished. And then after that failed and all the publishers said, no, this is not, we don't like it, whatever, this sucks. I thought, man, I wanted to write it in the 40s. I wanted it to be an older one, but I listened to her advice and I was like, screw that. Now I'm going to write what I want to write. Since that didn't work, I have an idea for the Boulevard Monster. Me and my wife were one day going downtown shopping on Route 66. It's in Amarillo where we lived at the time. And they have a bunch of antique stores. And I saw all these missing posters on the wall. And I was like, man, what if I knew where they were? I'd had this idea a while back. And so I was like, I'm just going to write that one. So I sat down with Boulevard Monster and said, screw it, I'm going to write what I want to write. I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I'm not going to worry about time here. I'm just going to write the idea I have. And so I wrote that. And it's actually my second novel, I guess I wrote. But yeah, and I sent it out to 5 small presses after I was rejected by like 50 agents first, of course. I sent it out to about 5 small presses and 3 of them wanted to buy it. So I was like, yes, this worked way better than, following the other girls. So.
Well, that's like Lansdale says, write the stuff you want to write, like everyone else is dead.
And that worked out for me perfect. That worked out great,
How's it feel to be nominated for a Stoker that early?
It was surreal. It was because I wasn't a member of the Horror Writers Association. People that say, ooh, it's this big good boys club. I didn't know anything. I wasn't a member of the association. I didn't even know how it worked. I'd never do. The best I ever got was I would go online to look at the top 5 novels from every year and try to read them, go back through time and what was the best, what was the best. Someday I may be on this list, but I didn't know another writer. I never met another writer. I had never talked to anybody that had written a book. I wasn't a part of the Horror Writers Association. So when it came out, I was thinking, well, hopefully some of my friends read it. Hopefully, it's just starting my platform type thing. And so when it started picking up steam it took about 6 months. And after 6 months, I saw the reviews start to jump. And it was coming up in fall that year. And then when I saw it made the shortlist, I was just like, man, this is freaking nuts. I don't even know how it got nominated. I didn't know how, I didn't know how that worked. And then when Pete told me, well, now you made the final ballot, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, people chase that 20 books in and they're still chasing it just to get nominated. So
yeah, it was so awesome. And it really was surreal. And really what it did, it was just a boost of confidence to me. I had been writing short stories since maybe 2004 or 5 and just publishing short stories. And I worked for different magazines as slush readers and started getting into anthologies with people like Jeff Strand and Joe McKinney and Weston. And I was getting my short story game really well back in the late 2010s, early. And then I finally got enough confidence. I'm going to try the book thing. And that really, once that was nominated, the best thing for me was confidence. It made me think, okay, if I follow my heart, if I go with my ideas, no matter how weird, no matter where they take me, don't listen to time period this, you need to set this, do what I want to do. And it worked out better than anything else I'd done. So, but yeah, was
that a big difference for you or struggle maybe to go from short stories to writing full-length novels? Like, was that a learning curve to do that?
It kind of was. I guess it was just more confidence for me. I had ideas. I had many short stories like The Boulevard Monster, SUNRAY ALICE, even Cricket Hunters, all started out as short stories. Okay. 5-10 years back. And I would start writing them, but they would start getting so long, I knew I couldn't. I didn't feel confident trying to flesh it out because I just didn't feel confident enough to do it. And then when I wrote The Boulevard Monster, what I actually did was wrote each chapter as a short story to make it easier on myself. And I know a lot of authors do that. When I talked to Armando Samila, he did the same with his first novel. He said, there's some people that say they do that. So I titled each one. Each chapter has a title. I wrote it like a short story, and it made it seem less daunting for that first novel. So, but once I had that first one, well, that was actually the second one because I'd written the one with the lady, but that one was different because I had help, mentor. And this one on my own, it made it easier to split it up like that.
Which process do you prefer, doing short stories or longer?
Longer now. Now I do, like, if I'm not a fast writer. I'm not one of these guys that's going to be like, oh, I've got 2 new novellas and a new novel here. Plus I have 5 short stories. I can't do that.
The year of Hepler.
Right. If I can write one book, write a book a year and a half, and usually like in the past, I've had 3 books in the past 5 years. Since Boulevard came out, it's been 5 years this April. This is my 3rd novel in 5 years. And every year I've had 3 short stories in anthologies or in magazines. So I've slowed down on the short stories. I only do them whenever there's an anthology call I like. I really don't do them for fun that much anymore because I wrote hundreds, literally hundreds. I kind of got burned out on them.
Yeah.
So now I like now doing real deeper dives, and I enjoy that.
I mean, taking your time like that and going slower. I have another writing friend that keeps, because I mean I keep getting mad at myself for not having my short story collection ready, and he just keeps telling me, take your time. When it happens for a reason, you know, not to rush and get everything together. So I mean, I can appreciate the fact that you're not on the clock. You have 3 books in the 5 years, like you said, and you just take your time on it. And nothing against anyone who can release 4 or 5 things in a year.
Definitely.
You know,
I'm envious of those people.
There's some writing machines out there that's great. That's just their style, you know.
Yeah.
Finding what's best for you and your pace, because that way the stuff you're putting in there, it meets your approval, you know.
Sure.
And you have to,
Yeah, and that's how I am. It takes a lot for me to build the confidence to commit to a project, especially a book. Like when I'm starting now, it takes me months to start working through ideas, to be confident enough to say, okay, because I know once I start, I'm gonna be obsessed. And it's gonna happen, but I won't start it. I'm not one of these. And like kind of like I heard Brad say, I can't panster. I know you on one of the podcasts said you can never be a panster like that.
That blows my mind how people can just not know where their story's going.
Yeah, exactly. I can't do that either. So I don't do detailed outlines, but with my books, before I sit down to start it or anything, the long ones, it's like if we're going on a road trip, I like to know, okay, we're leaving Texas, we're going to New York. I need to know where I'm going. Now and I need to know who's going to be in the car with me to start, and what their plans are getting there, right? And along the way, if we hit a detour, I'm willing to take a detour. Or if we pick up a hitchhiker that kills one of my passengers, I'm open to things to change, but I like to know where I'm starting at, where I'm going. And if we plan on stopping in Tennessee along the way. We plan on stopping in Kentucky, whatever, to stop at this place. So I like to have a general outline, but I'll keep it organic. But for me to commit to that outline, it takes me a while. I'm not one who can just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to fly by it today. I can't do that.
But I think some people do both, but then you have people who say you can't do both. And I think you can.
Yeah, there's like a middle.
I think the ones I've done so far, I've been both, because I start them off thinking I'm going one way. I just let it go a different way sometimes, you know. And then make it up as I go along. So I don't think I could sit down and plan it beginning, middle, and end like that. So I would probably be closer to a pantser. Just see how it goes, see how the dialogue plays, and go from there with it. So.
Yeah, when I do short stories, I can do that a little bit easier because I feel like it's only 3,000 words, 4,000 words. But when I'm thinking, man, I'm looking at something that feels real deep to me, 90, 100,000 words. I don't want to get 60,000 words in and be like, oh, shit.
That's stuck. Like, where do I go now?
Yeah,
that's how I would feel.
My mind can't just work that. My mind is not at ease like that. I have to. I have to know a little bit. I have to know at least, okay, I'm going here. Like with Cricket Hunters, I knew where I was going. I knew how I'd get to that last room where the final scene takes place. I didn't know what all characters would be in the room or who would walk out alive or if any of them would, but I knew that's where I needed to get. And so I had that destination at least in mind.
I can't remember. It was either Kev Harrison, maybe Alan Baxter. We're talking about, they sort of outline, but they have like pillars. Like, we're going to have this pillar. We're going to get to this point.
Sure.
Another pillar later on. I don't know how I'm going to get to that pillar, but I know there's certain pillars within the story.
Yeah,
trying to hit these points.
Similar. Yeah, that's similar to what I do, I guess.
Well, you want to break it up, do a little quick lightning round game here to kind of break up the monotony of all these questions.
Drilling you with questions. So it's like, Jay, get your clock up here.
Let me find my clock here.
So we'll throw up 60 seconds, and I'll ask you a bunch of random questions, and you answer as quick as you can, whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm not ready yet.
Come on, Jay.
All right. We're going 60 seconds, right?
6 seconds. We'll play the intro because it's fancy.
Okay.
That's like the first one I ever made. I think that's my favorite one. I didn't dub it over. Jay hates those.
You should. Yeah, go back
lightning
and do it.
round.
No, but do it like in your, what's it called? Voice.
What's it called?
Lightning round.
Question mark?
Yeah. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
And don't go yet. Sorry. Okay, and go.
What would your weapon of choice be in the zombie apocalypse?
Bat with nails.
Nice. What's your favorite TV show of all time?
Oh man. Gosh, I'll say The Middle, because watching it with my kid and my wife. Like we're talking. Well, but if we're talking drama, then I would say 6 Feet Under. But that's sitcom. Sorry.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Invisible. Be invisible.
What's your favorite food?
Burritos.
Favorite holiday?
Halloween.
What's your favorite sport?
To play baseball, watch football, basketball.
What's your dream vacation spot?
I haven't been on an airplane since 1998. I don't want to be on. I don't want to fly. So it would have to be somewhere I could drive. I'd like to drive to New York, somewhere like that.
What's the most treasured book that you own?
I don't really.
And time.
Yeah, maybe the first copy of my first book. I really don't have treasured books. I have a lot of books.
Yeah. I think if I ever wrote a book, that would be mine. Like something I wrote, like, wow, look what I did.
Yeah, I have a copy of my very first Boulevard Monster one in a notebook, just the original typed out when I have only one of those. And so that would probably be it.
So you said your favorite food's burritos. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, man. Because they're the most diverse food. You can say burrito, it's like a buffet. You can put anything in it, any meat, any bean, any cheese, any sauce. You can put vegetables, potatoes. I pretty much can. I eat every day for lunch almost. I eat what I call a bean bowl, where I just get a bowl, put some beans, put some meat, put a vegetable. One day barbecue sauce, one day salsa, one day, and then eat it with a tortilla. Almost, I eat that probably 4 or 5 days a week for lunch. Quick.
You're down in Texas. You probably have good Mexican food down there, don't you?
Oh yeah, and my wife, like I said, she's Hispanic. She makes tortillas from scratch, enchiladas. She can make all kinds of good stuff.
See, made from scratch and tortillas are the best. Man.
Oh yeah, I love the smell.
I could eat Mexican food every day of the week.
Yeah, well, I pretty much do.
I'm bad. I eat a lot of carbs. I eat a lot of rice and pasta all the time.
Yeah. I try not to eat pasta. I eat bread, tortillas is the two I try. I try not to eat too much of it. I have a lot of digestive problems, so I have to be kind of careful. Whenever I was 17, I was in a car accident, and I damaged my liver, stomach, pancreas, and ruptured them. And so I have a lot. I don't have a lot of I have problems with digestive food, so I have to watch what I eat a lot. So try to not do too many carbs. I can't eat too many fats, things like that. So
can you do spicy food? Does that mess with you, or?
You
don't like spicy food?
It messes with me, but I do it anyway. It's like, what do I want to hurt?
I know, really. I'm like, it's like I'll stop you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some days you just go for it.
Do you have a favorite hot sauce you put on your stuff?
Not really. I'll eat. We have local salsas here. There's like Texas local salsas and green ones. But that's pretty much. That's what I'll use.
Yeah.
Ones we get at our local store.
All things British.
So you mentioned earlier that you were working on something else now that's going to be darker than SUNRAY ALICE. Is this? Have you already talked to Crossroad? Is this going to be Crossroad 2, or do you know? Or
I don't know. I'm just now starting it myself, so
okay. You're not very far with it then.
Well, I have the whole story. I've already seen, like, I know the whole story in my head. At least I know where I'm getting to. I know what.
Right, I know you've researched for like 3 years with it, according from your other stories. But
well, and this one will be set modern. But this one will be about what I was saying about that car accident. When I was in that car accident, I was in a coma for 2 months, right? And when I woke up, I shattered my face, had a brain bleed, shattered my nose. I had fake bone plates in my face, jaw wired shut, had ruptured my liver stump. Right, I wake up like 2 months later in a hospital, tied to a bed with tubes coming out of my chest, my nose, my dick, my face, my throat. I had to be medevaced and had to have trachs. And so this is going to be, I'm going to use that personal experience in this one. I've always wanted to include it. So that's where it's going to start. So the research for that was life experience.
Yeah, that's a different kind of research. Okay.
Yeah. And
this is autobiography.
Right. Well, waking up like that, being in an injury like that, and then stuff that comes from that. And there's going to be supernatural, there's going to be speculative, it's going to get nasty, and that's not going to be the focus of it. But that's how it's going to start with my character awakening from an incident like that. So the research for that part's done.
I don't know if you've written those parts yet, but do you think that'll be hard for you to write, or has it been so long removed that it really wouldn't bother you now? Since it's based on personal experience.
Yeah, that was really such a, like I said, it was a traumatic experience. It happened on Friday the 13th, January of 1995. It was my junior year of high school, and we crashed. Me and my friends were in a Corvette, and I was in the passenger seat. We crashed into a pole going about 50. It wasn't a breakaway pole. We didn't have seatbelts on. So I flew up through the dash and the windshield. My friend the driver, he hit the steering wheel. My friend in the back seat was laying. It's a Corvette. There's no seat. He was laying down. He flew into our seats. And basically my face just slammed the dash and crushed it. And then my organs on the inside ruptured like water balloons. So they had to do exploratory surgery to slit it open. But when I talk about it like that, superficial, it doesn't bother me. But if I like am sitting with Trisha, my wife, and we start getting into the details of what it's like to wake up and the psychology I went through, the years of surgeries after that, and trying to go back and missing all the school and all of that stuff, being like, well, we don't know if he'll see, we don't know if he's gonna have brain damage to be able to talk, and people treating you with kid gloves, all of those things. If I really start thinking about it, it'll get me emotional. But I have to allow myself to deeply go there. So I'm sure when I'm writing it, that might happen some. I can talk about it superficially easy, like I said. But if I start thinking about it and dwelling on it, sitting by myself and trying to if you relive it, then yeah, it was a traumatic experience.
That sounds like a modern day success story. Damn.
Yeah, it was. They gave me, like, they told me whenever we wrecked in a town called Borger, Texas, where I grew up, maybe about 8,000, 7,000 people then. And they had a medevac because I was bleeding internally all over, and they got us to the hospital there, and they got my mom in there and told him, well, you need to probably tell him bye because we don't think he's going to live to make it to Amarillo, because that's where the nearest hospital was, about 45 minutes away. So they had to get a helicopter flight, pick me up. And then on the helicopter ride, I'd stopped breathing. Then they had to they did a trach, but they did it a little too high. But then after I stabilized a week later, they lowered it so it wouldn't mess with my vocal cords too much. But they had to cut a trach to get me to start breathing on the helicopter. Then they got me there. Once they got me there, within 13 minutes, I was in surgery. And they just did exploratory, just split my stomach. Where's he bleeding from? And then try to stop the brain bleed.
That's wild.
I mean,
it was nuts, and then you wake up and you feel like you've been abducted by aliens, like that show.
That's a real life horror story. That is a real life horror story right there.
Because every time you wake up, I would forget. My memory was shot. I thought it was a year earlier at first. I mean, it was so confusing. You're on morphine. You wake up, and I just start trying to rip tubes, and then they start tying you down. And I'd go to wake back up for a few hours, be out for a day, wake up, and every time you wake up, those first. It's like it's like not knowing all over again. It was crazy. And then once I finally started getting through all that, my jaw's wired shut, can't talk, have the trach in, can't talk because of breathing. So you can't communicate. It's real weird. And then after that, I had to relearn how to balance, to walk. So I'd try to sit up and just fall over. I couldn't balance. It was just a really strange, chaotic experience.
Mm-hmm. So is this new one that you're writing with the experience at the beginning? Is this going to be a more personal novel overall, or are you just using that experience just for the sort of catalyst of it?
Aspect. It's kind of like they say, write what you know, right? And I think that's more like it's not really write what you know, but it's take authentic experiences, put them in a trope to make that trope something it wasn't. We really can't write anything new. Everything's been written, ghost stories, but I can take something personal like that with me and insert it into a trope and make that thing my own, right? And that's what I try to do. Like with cricket hunters, I invented cricket hunting. Me and my son invented that. So that's something I put into the Curanderismo and the Hispanic Black Magic. I insert that in there to make it more unique to myself. So I think, to me, like writing what you know is putting doses of these authentic experiences that are unique to me into general ideas and tropes.
I think going back, that's how it fits under that big umbrella of horror, because there are so many things in different directions you could take with some of these. That's why there's so much crammed underneath that umbrella of horror that it fits. Somebody's going to find some kind of darkness and horror within it, no matter what. And I think that's what some people aim for. My God, that's just your story just now. That's just a living nightmare So
Yeah,
that right there, that's
it was chaotic. And I've always had it written down, to write, because I have a book of ideas like everybody spirals, where I write down ideas. And that's always been what I know I want to write about, but I just never had the right spin to put to it. And I finally think I have something that I can use it in to where it makes sense with my imagination and the horror and the speculative, and to twist it in a fun way, but also use that because it is a unique experience. I think I could share.
when did you know you wanted to write? Or is this something when you were younger you used to write stuff, or is this like later in the years?
No, for me it was more. I didn't start writing short stories till early 20s.
Okay.
Like when I was in school, like I think I told somebody that like the first things I ever wrote would be we were supposed to do book reviews, right? And they'd see me in the library, pick out a book, 6th grade, 5th grade, and I would get a book based on its cover, and then I wouldn't read it. I would just write a review based on what I thought it should be, right? And I would just make it up and write my own story for the cover. And most times teachers just put check marks. I never really got those would be like probably the first stories I ever wrote, but they were just BS. I didn't really start writing short stories till I lived in Austin, maybe when I was like 20, 21, 22. And I saw an ad in the Chronicle there for a short story contest. And I'd been beating around ideas in my head because I always had ideas going. I just never really did anything. And so I decided to write one for that and didn't win or anything. But after that, I started a book. I started writing something else that turned into like 30,000 words, and I just do that way. But ever since then, I started doing it. I just don't go that fast, I guess.
Have you always been a fan of horror stuff? Have you always, once you started writing, did you want to write in horror? Or did you want to write, other genres first? Or
it really wasn't specifically horror, but I always liked speculative things. I love my favorites would be like Ray Bradbury, Stephen King, things like that. And then I love true crime, like unsolved mysteries used to freak me out when I was young.
Yeah.
Things like that. I like to have a mixture of the mystery, but I also like kind of like where you just dip your foot into speculative. You barely get a little bit of the magical or the supernatural. I'm not super big. I like reading fantasy and some of those deeper cosmic ones. I'll watch them and read them, but as a creator, I tend to go more realistic with a touch of the supernatural horror. But I have a brother, he's almost 4 years older than me. And when I was little, in the 80s, we would watch Friday the 13th together and Jason movies and Jaws and Sleepaway Camp. And I'm like, 3rd grade stuff. So I think I used to I would be terrified. And some of those nights maybe wouldn't even sleep. But the next day, I watched that stuff too, that age too. So.
Right. Yeah.
But the next day, I was addicted to it and wanted to do it again.
That was that generation.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I was just saying, you always sort of had it in the back of your mind then, from growing up and watching those movies.
I enjoyed the thrill of it, really, like the thrill of it.
Mm-hmm. We were talking to what was our author guest last time? I'm horrible with names. Forgot. Mark Taus.
Oh, Taus, yeah.
So he said he writes a lot of like comedy into his horror. Have you ever tried? Because there wasn't really any in SUNRAY ALICE. Have you tried to do that at all? Or
thanks for spoiler, Brad. I was hoping for some comedy.
Hoping for some jokes.
I don't. With that kind of content, I don't know what kind of jokes they could have, but still.
Right. I never really thought about writing comedy in there. I like to throw jokes in amongst the group, like in Cricket Hunters, I have them jacking around with each other the way kids would do, and then the way maybe Alice and Robert play with each other and elbow each other and flirt, things like that. I try to keep real. But I've never actually thought about, making something comedy for funny's sake. I did hear what he said about that, and I understand why he does it. But that never pops into my head naturally, I guess.
Yeah. Like they balance so well together, but you don't see it very often, like comedy, horror, whether it's movies or definitely not really books that often.
Yeah. And like you said, I think Jeff Strand does it. He's a master. Yeah, Jeff Strand. I love his stuff. He does it real well.
Like he's really the one I knew the most before I started reading Mark Taus stuff as far as comedy goes. But yeah, so and Strand's a Stoker award.
So is there anything like I know you don't really pick genres at all, but is there any type of story you would like to write that you haven't yet? Like maybe like just naming something like a haunted house story or a splatter western or anything specific like that you'd want to try eventually someday?
Yeah, I have a list, probably like 30 really books that I want to, and each one I have a mermaid story I want to write. I have an alien story I want to write. I do have a haunted house story. I have a possession story. I kind of picked one of each, and I over all of those ideas. I have a page with basically book ideas. Then I have pages of short story ideas, and on the book ideas, I write them out and leave a bunch of blanks. And every time I get a new notebook, I move those with all the stuff I've written over the years. So like the one I'm working on now, I've been adding little things to it for years. And so that's why it takes me a while. I think for book ideas, I would just add to it. But I have some that I think, okay, in my Cricket Hunters, I knew that was going to be a witchcraft story. I just knew it years ago, but slowly worked my way into it.
Do you credit anyone, any bigger author, a more popular author, for your style? Like, did you shape your style after reading Stephen King or reading anybody else?
I don't think I didn't shape my style. I think what I did is I copied everybody. Early on, when I was writing those short stories in the early 2000s, when I read Bradbury, I copied Bradbury. When I first discovered Jack Ketchum, I started writing real short like Jack Ketchum. And I copied him a bunch of different people. If you go back and look at my old stories back then, and I think eventually those all melded together into the way I do it now. I have a certain way that I just write now, but I think it took copying 15, 20 different, I first read Sarah Langen's book, The Missing. I started copying her. I love the way she did that. Malfi too, Ron Malfi. When I first read him, I started copying. At first I was copying everybody until I found a mix that I liked of almost all of them. So I'd credit really anything I've ever read. Everybody I've read, I've kind of stolen and mashed into me.
I think writing short stories would be a great place to experiment with that. Since they're so short, you can do all these different styles and interpretations and stuff like that to amalgamate all these different styles into your own creative style.
Definitely.
So if someone is new to your work and they're wanting to pick up something of yours for the first time, do you have a suggestion for where they should start, like one over the other ones or anything?
I would say the newest one, SUNRAY ALICE, just because it's my newest one, so I'm in love with it the most right now. I think that one. Boulevard Monster is a good one too. I think that one, I love that story. I think either one of those would be good starts. Just depends if you want a little bit more dark, bleak, go Boulevard. If you want something a little more just speculative and magical, go SUNRAY ALICE.
Do you have oh, that just completely flew out of my head. I lost complete train of thought.
I'm gonna turn on the lamp. One sec.
Okay.
Second, the sun's going down here.
Oh, because it's what, like 8:20 for you?
Yeah, it's 8:20.
That's right. You're in Texas?
Yellow, but yeah, I'm in Texas, Central Texas.
My gosh, how many have we interviewed this season that live in Texas? Probably more than half the shows.
Lansdale, Max, Holly was in Texas, Jeremy's in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people from Texas.
Yeah, there is. It's weird that we don't have our own.
I would say, is there not a horror writers association for Texas?
I think there used to be one in Dallas, but not anymore. I'm pretty sure there used to be back maybe 10, 15 years. I know a long time ago there was, but I don't know if there is one anymore.
Would that be something?
Process of starting one, but you guys ought to start one.
We can ask Nikki if she's still here. She started one up in Canada, wherever she's at.
Yeah.
Would that be something you would be interested in, like a associate? I guess they like meet up and stuff like once a month or have meetings and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I've never been to any of those meetings. I joined the Horror Writers Association after I was nominated. But other than that, I've never been to a Stoker Con. I've never been to a meeting. I'm not.
I was going to ask, are you a convention person? Do you go to the conventions and hang out with the other writers? And
I never have. I've never been to a convention. I mean, I would if it was close. I know there was the one in San Antonio recently that Laurel, a bunch of them went to that with Max, and then Max, but that was the weekend my son's birthday, and he was in UIL, so I couldn't go. That's the closest one. The one in Denver, like where we live in Texas, is such a weird place. Like to get, even the year I was nominated, to get up to Providence, which is where it was wrote at that year, it was either going to be like a 23-hour drive, a $1,500 round trip plane ticket, and I'm like, I can't swing that. It's just so
Right.
far. And even to get to Denver from here is about maybe 14 hours. So drive. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere down here. It's so far away from everywhere. It's hot. And right now with gas prices and everything is so expensive. It's thousands of dollars sometimes to get far off. But once they were close enough, I would go.
14-hour drive. That's not too awful. It's better than going up to Rhode Island. A 24-hour drive or whatever you said.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's a slog, man. Me and my wife drove from Austin to Virginia, and it took about 25 hours, to get up to Charlottesville one time when we were in going to be the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Long.
It'd be a week for me. I can't do the. After a couple of hours, I'm done. I just can't.
Yeah, and we were driving a moving van or a U-Haul, so that's why part of the reason it took a little longer. But still,
so with being a member of the Horror Writers Association, like what does that do for you exactly? Because I don't really know too much about it, other than I know they do like the awards and stuff like that. But what does it do for you as an author to sign up for it?
Well, you can get mentorships, you can get scholarships. You can get there's all kinds of different things you could get. You get exclusive news to submission calls for certain anthologies. There's a list of agents. There's so much now. There's
special treatment.
Yeah, there's so many different things on the site. There's where you can go and get help with pretty much anything, with legal things, contract things. With now they got a new, I think, mental health department part of it, and they have a new part where you can help get health insurance. They'll help you.
That's nice.
Really?
All of those are things they offer through there. A lot of people, like I said, people know way better than I do. I'm not a huge.
You get to vote for the Stokers, is what
Mike
says.
If you're, but you have to be an active member. And here's the funny thing: I don't even get to vote because I'm not an active member. I'm an associate member because I haven't sold enough money's worth of books to be an active member, even though I have 3 novels and I've been nominated. I still have not qualified to be an active member.
Yeah, there's several different levels, right? Like you have to sell so much for certain books.
Yeah, Mike, he talked about the synopsis at the beginning. Basically, it's a good book. You should just go pick it up. That's a synopsis.
We're not gonna do spoilers because I'm only about 100 pages in. So
you can look it up on Amazon. Read the back of the book teaser thing. That's good.
Here, Mike, you can screenshot it and you can.
I know. I was gonna say.
And I kind of like Jay. I don't read those. I don't like. Cause I know he said he doesn't like to read them a lot of times on holidays.
I don't read them all the time. Yeah, I don't ever read them. Yeah.
I don't like reading those or the inside of the jackets because I feel like if I read that, I know the first 20 pages usually, and then also I know I like to be totally surprised with wherever it goes. So I usually, and that's why I hate writing those too, because I don't want to give any. I'm like, man, I don't want to tell people what's going to be in there.
I didn't read.
But
I didn't read this one, so maybe I would have known about that situation.
Like I glance at them every now and then, but like you said, the hardcovers with the inside of the dust jacket, those are like 500 words. They're so long to tell you the whole book, basically.
Yeah,
they give way too much. Like Stephen King books basically tells you the whole
that's your book report back in the 5th and 6th grade we were just talking about.
Right.
You picked a book on your cover from the cover and then just write the inside. By the way, side note, Laurel Hightower, I think she's excited for a 25-hour drive. I think if she did that, we would have a new book out.
She would get another novella out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Below part 2.
I did want to ask you, since you've done short stories and novels, have you thought about doing a novella at all, or if it just happens, it happens?
Yeah, I think if it happens, it happens. I think the closest thing I have to that is I have an idea of a title. I already have, and I have 2 of the 3 stories done. And it's going to be the overlapping novella type thing, where I'm going to have 3 or 4 novellas that all partially overlap, kind of like Trick or Treat, the Halloween movie, or many different authors. I think Goblin's kind of like that with Mailerman. You have 2 total different stories, and that's the only time I've had ideas for novellas, really. But I have 2 of the 3. Once I get the 3rd one, I plan on doing that someday.
Right.
It's kind of like a mosaic kind of thing. That's what Alan Baxter did with The Gulp, and I think the second one's called The Fall. Like they're all take place in the same place, but they're all different people.
Yeah, and mine is going to be, I think it's going to be called The Wonder of Apple Creek, and it's going to be about this creek where this just weird shit always happens. And there's 3 overlapping stories where people live on either side of it or use the water. You know,
That's
just
the
different things
synopsis
where
right there. Weird shit happens.
Where it should
Right.
happen.
There you go.
Like just with that title alone, I'm already intrigued. Just with the title, I like that.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Hopefully someday.
And I hear a lot of authors say they hate writing the synopsis for the back of the book. Like I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of them, that's the hardest part of the book is trying to figure out what to put on the back copy.
Without
Well, yeah,
putting
to
too
try to
much. and-
encapsulate it, especially after you've written the whole book, right? I have this whole story in my head, and it's so deep and it's so complex. And then you're telling me 200 words. Tell me everything that's in that book that people should know. And I'm like, it took me 90,000 words to tell you the story. I can't tell you, it just seems impossible to condense it. There seems to be so much in my head that I want to say that it's hard to squeeze it down.
Is it hard to separate yourself from the story where you don't spoil stuff in the back copy?
Well,
You don't want to.
not because I don't like to read those. So I make since I don't like to read them, I make it very specific. Like in the back of this one, I made it to where it's very general second paragraph, just general, really doesn't say anything, just it's going to be this journey of greatness. And then the first paragraph, I basically tell you everything you're going to learn, anything in that first paragraph, you're going to learn in the first few pages. And that's all I'll give. The first paragraph, first few pages, second paragraph, a little bit of a weaving. Okay, it's going to be this journey maybe, but everything on the back of that one you're going to learn in the first 5-6 pages. So
I don't see. I'm glancing at the first paragraph of it, and I'm like, I learned that on my own reading the actual book. So that would kind of mess it up for me a little bit.
yeah.
So I'm not
It's
reading the
kinda
second paragraph. Forget it. I'm not reading it.
It's kind of like a good movie trailer. You only want to give away like certain points at the beginning. A lot of movie
Right, but
trailers
I'm
now
the
give
same
away
way
the whole
about
movie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way about movie trailers. I won't watch them if I know I'm going to watch the movie because I think those give away too much in a lot of instances. They give away so much nowadays. It's like a 4-minute movie trailer where you tell me,
Yeah.
okay, I know I'm going to go see it, so I'm not going to watch the trailer. I'm just not going to do it.
And then when you do see it, you're like, well, all the good parts were in the trailer.
Right?
That's right. Like you give me like a teaser trailer. It's like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just like some flash images, like cool looking stuff. Like, yeah, I want to go see that. But
Right.
a lot of them now do the whole plot, and you're like, well, I don't even need to go see the movie anymore.
I know.
Right?
It's like,
You know exactly what's going to happen.
what are you normally doing on a Friday night? Are we keeping you from writing right now?
No, I usually write in the morning. Usually I just be right now hanging out with my son, playing PlayStation or watching TV, reading, something like that.
Nice. Does your son read as well?
Oh yeah, he turned 16 the 1st of May. So, but he reads a lot. He's actually already he wrote a novel during COVID when I did too. He wrote a fan fiction Minecraft novel. It's like 73,000 words, and he writes.
Really?
Yeah, he writes short stories. He's a go-getter.
That's cool.
But yeah, he has a second book. He likes to write fan fiction for games he plays and different things.
Is that a direction he plans on going later in life to try to get some more writing and release some stuff? Or
I don't know if he will or not. Right now he just loves to write the stories. The only people that read them is me and Trisha. So, but he loves it just to do it. He just loves. Even when he was little, he used to write comics when he was 5 and 6 years old. We were going through his room today, cleaning out his closet and finding old sheets of, Sonic the Hedgehog and different comics where he wrote his own comics. He's 6-7 years old that Trisha keeps. But
you guys can collaborate together,
right? I think that'd be fun. He actually helps me a lot. At the end of SUNRAY, I talk about how whenever I'm running through, where I get kind of stuck in my stories, I'll go to him and Trisha, and I'll start telling them about it. Just have somebody to soundboard off of, and he gives me ideas. She gives me ideas. So they. He actually, and sometimes his ideas are nothing like I would ever think. He's a 16-year-old nowadays. He comes up with some things that really blow my mind, that give me a whole new way I would never look at it with my age and my experiences. So it actually helps me a lot.
Well, I mean, there you go. Because Stephen King has done stuff with his kids. So
yeah.
And so there you could get your wife, get your kid, and you guys just.
Right.
It'd be like the Hepler family releases SUNRAY ALICE Part 2, and go for it. So
we can do SUNRAY Emily, right? See what happens.
Yeah.
With her.
Does your son, does he read your books too?
He's never read them. He says he will. I wouldn't care if he did, really. I think we wouldn't let him read Boulevard Monster, Cricket Hunters when he was younger. He can read SUNRAY ALICE whenever he wants. I would let him read any of them now that he's 16. I don't care what he's now. But when Boulevard came out, he was only 10, so I wouldn't let him read then. But he reads more. He's into almost like fantasy stuff. He loves the Warrior Cat books. all the Minecraft books. Like those are things he loves to read.
My niece reads those Warrior Cat books.
Yeah,
There's like a whole-
there's like 58 of them. He's read every single one of them. We buy them when they come out. You know, since over the past 3, 4, 5 years, got into it and just read every single one of them.
That's cool that he's a reader though, because a lot of kids don't have the attention span to read anymore. They're all stuck on their phones doing stuff all the time.
Yeah, and he's on there a lot now. He's older, but I think having Trisha being an English teacher, me being a writer, me and her read all the time. I mean, he just grew up around that. So
I'm serious. You could start a family business. So your wife's an English teacher; she could do all the editing and stuff, you know, and you and your son could do the stories. It's all set up,
right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, if we do it, we'll credit you.
Just real small print in the back. Yeah.
So what are you reading right now? Anything good?
Here lately, I've been reading. What am I reading? I'm reading I'm reading short stories in the anthology. What Would Wouldn't Do or Would Do. Scott Moses, I think.
Yeah, that's great. That was probably my favorite of last year. My favorite anthology.
I've been reading when I wake up. I don't sleep well sometimes, so I've been waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning. Can't sleep. That's when I'll open my Kindle and I'll read through those short stories.
Mm-hmm.
What One Wouldn't Do.
Yeah, that one. That's it. And then I've been reading. I started reading Cujo because I've never read it, and I heard the other day Stephen King's gonna have a sequel.
It's got a sequel. Yeah.
Right. So I started reading that yesterday because I've never read it. And then the other one I've read recently, or I am reading, is I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's either The Sadist or The Sadiest by Austrian Spencer.
Austrian Spencer. Yeah. I think it's The Sadiest. I think I'm probably wrong. I think so.
Yeah, that one. Those are the three that I'm alternating between.
Yeah, there's an I in there that makes it.
Yeah, it makes it look weird. Yeah. Do you say sadist? Sadiest?
He's told me how to pronounce it before, but I forgot. I think it's The Sadiest, but I'm probably wrong. Don't take my word for it.
But yeah, those are the ones I'm kind of doing. Usually I try to read a nonfiction book too. On the side, I like to read historical books or whatever, but about biographies, but I don't have anything going right there right now.
So are you I don't want to say fan because that sounds bad, but are you interested in World War II stuff? You said you like to read nonfiction, and this one takes place during that time. Is that something that interests you, that subject?
Oh yeah, I love the era. Like, you know, here recently we had with our dish we were talking about earlier, just sounded like we had the military channel for free for a month. And so me and Trisha were, you know, they show every show, Hitler this, Hitler that, Hitler this, Hitler that, World War II color marathon for 4 days. So we watched all of those for like.
I mean, that's a wild Friday night right there.
Right. That's what it's like when you're in your mid-40s, man. It's
I'm right there with you. I think we're the same age, so yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's me and Trisha on the weekends. You know, Friday night I'm in bed by 10:30. It's like, man, but I get up every day now by 6:30. It's just the way. We used to.
I can't make it at 10:30. I'm usually up by 3:30. So yeah.
I don't know.
This show keeps me awake late on Friday.
Keeps you young, doesn't it, Jay?
It does. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about World War II that's so fascinating. And I'm reading sort of similar to yours. I'm reading The Fervor by Amakatsu right now, which deals with the other, you know, Japanese prison camps. But with World War II, I never think about like the Pacific end of it. I always think about Europe and the Nazis and stuff.
Sure.
So it's interesting. I don't know why. I just, you know, you think about Pearl Harbor because that was a big event, but other than that, I don't think about the fight with Japan very much. I don't know why. That's kind of strange, but reading her book is good because it's sort of the other side of World War II that you don't really see as much, you know, because it's all about Hitler, like you said, and everything.
Most of her stuff is considered historical fiction, though, right?
The Hunger is, The Deep is about the Titanic. This one's about World War II, but she's got like it's called like Red and Blue or something like that. That's like a spy thriller. She used to work for like the CIA or FBI or something like that.
So I wonder who researches more, her or Jeremy here.
I imagine she does. I've only had to do one book. Yeah, she does. Yeah, hers all right. Besides that one you said, The Hunger was what is it?
The Donner Party.
Donner Party. Yeah, the cannibalist Donner Party there. Yeah.
I like historical fiction when it mixes with horror like that. You know.
Yeah.
The Titanic one sounds really interesting. I don't know. Be curious to see what the horror aspects were of that. Mermaids or ghosts or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you already got your trope right. You're isolated in a horrible area with no way to call for help and no way to get help. You have, you know, tons of people to kill, and you know, I mean, you got the perfect setup for a horror story.
Yeah, that would be horrible too. Just out there in the middle ocean. I mean, literally, you can't do anything because you said it's back in the day. There's no cell phones. You can't call anybody. There's no GPS.
Yeah,
You're
there's
just
no help,
screwed in the ocean.
right? It becomes a battle of the fittest, right? Survival of the fittest. You got so few boats, but too many people, and it's who's going to get on them. You got to battle.
Yeah.
And then if you got some vampire, some shit coming after you, that's not gonna
Just throw that in.
Or a zombie, or it doesn't matter, just something.
Right?
Yeah,
Your boat's already sinking in the ocean, but let's throw some vampires and zombies and stuff at you too, just for the hell of it.
we'll just throw whatever sticks and just keep going
Right.
with it. Yeah, crazy. Well, as we wind down some for this evening, what's in the near future? I know you said you're working on another one right now. Anything else? Any other projects? Any short stories? Any calls that you're entering or anything like that? Or do you have any stories that you've messed around with that you may go back and revisit and release for us? That's a big loaded question that kind of end the show with, but still.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, the one I'm working on now is the one I'll probably start focusing on soon once I start it. I have a few short stories out that are on short lists right now for anthologies I'm waiting to hear back on. I don't have anything to write short story wise.
Right.
Actually, when I was coming up with an idea, and a lot of times some of the publishers with Boulevard Monster initially told me, well, what's going to happen next? We need that story to continue. And whenever I was coming up with ideas for the one I'm working on now with the brain trauma guy, I actually, for the first time ever, thought of an idea for a sequel to that. So if I ever go back to anything, the thing I'd go back to the soonest would be Return to the Boulevard Monster, really, because that one ends open-ended pretty much. It ends bleak, but it could be, it could go on if I wanted to. And I had a good idea for that when I was coming up with ideas for this one. So if I were revisiting anything, it would be to go back and do the sequel to that.
Yes. So you're not opposed to maybe making it into a series, maybe, or just an
I don't know if
extra
it'd be
part,
able to be a series, but I think I have an idea for another way I could continue the same story. I don't think I'd want to do a series, but I could continue that story for another, 300 pages probably.
Right.
Mm-hmm. When you are writing, do you write multiple things at once, like work on a book and a short story, or do you just focus on one project at a time?
I do one project.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I was writing a book and an anthology, somebody asked me to please write one for it, I would stop to do it. The short stories. Usually I can kick out a short story. If I have an idea I can do it in a week or two, to get it done. Usually if I focus on it, but the books take a lot longer. And when I'm doing the books, I like to do it 5 days a week. I don't write on the weekends. I'm not one of these everydayers, but I'll try to write 5 days a week. And I don't really have word counts or anything. I just try to do well. If I walk away knowing I made it better that day, whether I improved a paragraph, I edited a page, or I added 4,000 words, my motto is if I walk away knowing that story was better than when I sat down, that's my work day. And it's hard to do that. I like to, when I'm doing a longer story, I like to stick with that. And basically, like I was saying earlier, time travel. I go there and I travel into it. And if I break out and start doing a short story, that makes that a little harder for me to get back into it.
So you immerse yourself in your stories while you're writing them. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Whenever they're going good, it's like I forget I'm writing. It's like I'm watching a movie in my head.
You're like a method actor. You're like Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, you're
kind of right. Like when I'm writing Cricket Hunters, I would keep my cricket stick. Me and my son, we made our own, and I have it, and I would keep it right there. I have when I was writing the Boulevard Monster, I have a Blue Jay doll that I have with me. So I do in the method acting. When I was writing another story about this girl down by the border who played with a set of Mexican playing cards, I bought them. I keep them right, and I would keep them here, and I learned how to play the game, so it would help me understand how she was using them in the short story better. So nice. It's kind of like a method acting a little bit.
Did you have any props or anything like that for SUNRAY ALICE?
With that, it was just plants. Really, it was because my wife loves plants. Right now, I think she
got a shovel.
52 plants on our back porch right now. It's like 48 or 52. It's something outrageous. But I would just put plants all on my desk when normally I don't, to feel that like I was in a garden. Like a green area, right?
He just walked up and down the street with the shovel on his shoulder.
Right, carried in store.
Yeah, really.
That's cool. Yeah. I don't really hear anybody saying they have sort of like props around them to relate to the story. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah,
keep you immersed in the story.
Yeah,
well, I mean, Ross Jeffrey just tells us about his box he has. His chest of treasures. Yeah, he tells us about that. But
Actual physical props, though, that's cool. I like that because you can visualize it, and that immerses you more within the story and stuff.
Yeah, it just makes them to feel more real to me. Like I've said before, to me, I think Alice is real. It's like she's my neighbor. In my head, she's gonna be real. I'm gonna get senile someday, and I'm gonna be talking to my neighbor about my friend Alice, my grandma. She'll be real, just as real as my wife or anybody else. When vibrator starts to slip at all, that's how real they become to me.
Just out of nowhere. Do you remember that time Alice went to the store to get some flowers?
Right?
Just out of nowhere.
And people are gonna be like, "Who the hell's Alice? What are you talking about? You know anybody named Alice? Anybody in your family named Alice?"
Wow.
With your characters being so real with you like that, is it hard for you to kill characters off? Like, is that sort of traumatic for you to do that, or you not that attached to them?
It can be, definitely. And even just saying goodbye, like at the end of the Sunray book, if I start reading the last maybe 10, 20 pages, I can start feeling emotional just because I know it's like saying goodbye to him. Even it's a little rough sometimes. Killing them, it's hard too. But I guess I do get emotionally attached to the fictional people I create in my head.
Especially because you're writing, you're writing for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. You're with them for such a long period of time.
Those are your only friends.
Yeah, they spend more time with you during the day than real people, sometimes. So
And you start asking questions, they start answering them back to you.
Right.
That's when you're in trouble.
Right? I'm laying in bed at night, like my wife's like, "Who the hell's Alice?" I'm laying in bed, "Alice, man, what do you want me to do?"
Yeah.
Who's this Alice lady?
It's a character. It's a character. I promise. It's the book. It's the book.
Nice.
You totally get in trouble with and these random women's names while you're asleep.
Right.
All right, Jeremy, where can people find you? I know you're on Twitter. Are you on Instagram too?
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not on there that much because I have my phone. I'm not a big tech guy. My phone is a Galaxy 3. I bought it for $60 7 years ago, so I can take like 3 pictures before it says no more pictures can be taken. So I really don't do Instagram a lot. I have to use my son's phone or my wife's because they have good phones. But yeah, I'm on Instagram under Jeremy Hepler author. Twitter is at Jeremy Hepler. Facebook at Jeremy Hepler. I was the first one on there, so I got them like 20 years ago, so most of them are just my name.
Yeah.
And I'm on Goodreads if people want to go on Goodreads. Amazon, same thing, just under my name. I'm the only one.
You don't have a website for your stuff. Everything's on Amazon for you, or?
Yeah, I used to have a website. I used to have a blog on WordPress too back in the late 2009, 10, 11, 12. And I would write, and I started realizing it was almost pointless because I got so much more interaction on social media, so many more sales through that at some point. And I know Joe Hill did the same thing. He used to have his own web pages and stuff, and eventually just drop them because you'll get more.
So much more accessible on like Twitter or Instagram.
Twitter and Instagram, they kind of
Twitter, Instagram, and then Facebook. That's where I do most of my stuff because I was just getting so little traffic. I was writing a blog a week and getting myself to look at it. It was just, no matter how much I tried to get it out there, it just wouldn't. So it became easy. And it became too much once you start getting Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all these. It's like, I have to drop
I know.
So I dropped the one.
I'm lost.
Yeah.
I have my 13-year-old daughter teaches me stuff every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
My 8-year-old even teaches me stuff. She comes home with a new vocabulary, and I'm like, "What did you say?" And she'll tell me
it's
something
totally TikTok new. Trend or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how our son is. I mean, me and my wife both. She's a little older than me, and we're both mid-40s. And anytime we have anything technology, Noah, get in here. The mouse don't work, Noah. But then also it works both ways. Like earlier today, he got on Trisha's laptop and screwed up her mouse. Where every time she moved it, it did these weird. And she's like, "Noah, get in here." So he'll play jokes like screw it up. He knows how to screw it up on us too. We can't fix it. So works both ways.
TikTok makes me feel old. Like I feel like I don't know how to do the editing stuff, and they have all these crazy videos of they're switching all this crap around all the time. I just feel like an idiot trying to figure out how to do TikTok.
You see some of the crazy videos that people put on there, but all of mine look their
faces around.
All of mine look the same. All of mine I put on there has the same opening, the same closing, and it's just a bunch of books I'm reading and stuff. Like I don't know where they come up with these special effects.
Like I'm curious. They're like 60 seconds long. I'm curious how long it takes them to edit these videos. They spend like 4 hours editing a 60-second video. Some of them are so they're like to the music and they have their face painted and their lights going around. It's just I don't understand.
Well, even
how to
like
do
what's his name, Bo, right, on Twitter. That dude,
Bo
does
Johnson,
yeah.
they're awesome. But it's like he puts up a new one every day. I'm like, man, how is he doing this stuff?
I think he puts up 3 or 4 new ones a day. To be honest with you, unless he has a bunch in the bank ready to go.
His are funny too. I like those funny.
But I mean, you got to be really careful because you could like forward the wrong one or like the wrong one, and you go down a rabbit hole that you cannot get out of. And you're like, why the hell is this popping up on my feed? Why is this for me? It's not, So,
and as crazy as Twitter and stuff can be, sometimes as opposed to like a website, it's much more personable. Like, I feel like I actually have a conversation with somebody on Twitter as opposed to leaving a comment on a blog that I feel like they might see, they might not see. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just more rapid. It's right there. You're talking to somebody. Yeah, no, it's really the blog thing. Like I said, you just drop it because it didn't do enough. There was no interaction.
All right, as we wrap it up here, we can't thank our guests enough for hanging out with us on this Friday evening. You still have extra time to go out and do what you got to do because you're an hour behind us. But the newest one, go check it out. Don't buy this copy. This is something different. Go buy the new copy.
Go buy the new copy from Crossroads Press.
Yeah. Right, yeah. But don't spoil it for me. No, nothing in the comments. I know
I'll tell you
guys
Jay.
Do me sometimes. I know how you guys do me sometimes, but yeah.
So on page 121, Alice, she sneezes. She blows her nose on page 121.
Jeremy, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Totally appreciate it.
Thank you guys, man. I had a blast.
That's a wrap, everyone, for our guest this evening, Jeremy Hepler. You can find him on Twitter, Instagram. His stuff's on Amazon. And check it out. That's going to do it. Another exciting episode of Paper Cuts. Glad you guys got to see me. All that fun stuff. Anything
Jeremy,
else,
thanks
Brad?
for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
I'm almost done with it, and I don't know where yet, but it's definitely in my top 5 books of the year so far. It's fantastic.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Unless the ending totally messes them up.
Unless you just tank the last few pages.
Yeah, really. Unless all of a sudden an alien pops up and it becomes space erotica or something.
You had to slip that reference in, right?
I had to. I didn't want to break my streak, really. That's it, guys. It's a wrap. We're out of here. See you guys. Jeremy, thanks so much. Brad,
thanks for coming on, Jeremy. I appreciate it, man.
Good night, guys.
Love you, Jay.
I know you do.